Okay, guys, this will be the last part of my NGO series. I haven't written this one, but it will be the end of the series. And I'll just say that in Swedish as well before we start. Det här är sista i NGO-serien. Det är inte jag som har skrivit det här, utan det är en annan. Jag vet vem personen är givetvis, han har skickat det till mig. Det finns flera delar, men jag har försökt att sätta ihop det så gott som går. Det kanske blir lite hackigt, men det är också på engelska. Jag har lagt in översättningsprogram i underskrifterna för de som vill översätta från engelska till svenska. Det är ett jättebra program. Men då kör vi. All right, guys. I've also put a translation program into the description of all the videos. There's a 6-part series now. The last, as I said, and it's actually a series of letters. I've tried to put it together as good as I can. I haven't written it. I'm just taking it as it is. So here we go. Let's rock and roll. Open letter from the people of the Republic of the Philippines, the Gary Hugen, Part 1. Owner, director, operator, and CEO of International Justice Mission Worldwide, Mr. Hugen. The victimized citizens of the Republic of the Philippines and victims from Los Angeles Cafe Manila raid on the 17th of June 2010 by International Justice Mission and their American franchise in the Philippines hereby write to you, Mr. Hugen, and your International Justice Mission Philippines directly. IJM Philippines is registered with the Philippine Securities and Exchange Commission with a board of directors amounting to 5 foreign passport holders, acting as dummies who cannot be held accountable under Philippine law while they're residing in the United States of America and Colombia, South America, for any actions your Philippine franchise commits, namely Jorge Atenisia, Bataga, Colombia, Dale Hansen, United States, Richard Companelli, United States, Sam Diamond, United States, Robert Hagenau, United States. We, the victimized citizens of the Republic of the Philippines, have been trying to contact you, Mr. Gary Hugen, and your American franchise license office in the United States for more than 1 calendar year, since you had us all put in jail in the city of Manila police headquarters. Meanwhile, your IJM Philippine franchise office continue to threaten our lives and freedom here in the Philippines as citizens every time we see them in court at the office of the Philippine Human Rights Agency. What I understand is that there was several hearings, I think over 10 in the Human Rights Agency until IJM with the deep pockets managed to make everything disappear. That's only what I've heard. I didn't even know Philippines had a human rights agency. I know now. Mr. Gary Hugen, you claim to be a human rights advocate, an organization. Then talk to us, your victims, and hear our side of the story on how you have lied to persecute innocent Filipino citizens, taking away our human rights. Mr. Gary Hugen, you talk the talk, but you don't walk the walk, as you claim on CNN to be a champion of human rights. IJM Philippines have and continue to fabricate malicious, untrue, totally illegal documents about Filipino tax-paying businesses, where we have been happily employed for more than 10 years, namely Los Angeles Cafe. Los Angeles Cafe was an accredited establishment by the Philippine Department of Tourism, located opposite the United States of America's embassy on Rojas Boulevard. Diplomats from the United States of America's embassy to the Philippines were our most valued customers. There were many photos of diplomats, among others, eating and playing pool in our establishment. Los Angeles Cafe have CCTV footage and digital photographs of American diplomats, plated cars from the United States of America's embassy, parked on MH del Pilar Street, Ermita, while the diplomats enjoyed a cold beer on the way home to their compound or their apartments. MH del Pilar is the famous street in Ermita that you and your IJM Philippine franchise complained in an open letter, which we attached to the mayor of Manila for having street people and been dirty with rubbish. What has a street more than 5 kilometers long with 5-star hotels like Grand Hyatt Hotel and Casino, Manila Diamond Hotel, being dirty got to do with Los Angeles Cafe and justify putting people in jail? Why not put the staff of Grand Hyatt Hotel and the casino employees in jail for that matter, as they're located on MH Del Pilar? While residents and hotel guests from this famous American branded hotel chain frequently visit Los Angeles Cafe. In fact, you even put 2 Grand Hotel employees in jail that dreadful evening, while allowing the foreign guests from the Grand Hyatt Hotel to go free, as not to damage your human rights image. The general manager and the executive chef from Grand Hyatt Hotel were frequent visitors to Los Angeles Cafe. Los Angeles Cafe is located 200 meters from the world-famous Hyatt Hotel Casino and less than 1 kilometer away from the Embassy of the United States of America. Los Angeles Cafe sponsored the American Embassy's Manila Gorilla softball team that plays every Sunday at the United States of America's Ross Boulevard compound. Both Filipino and international celebrities and famous sports persons were seen every day at Los Angeles Cafe. As a matter of fact, the majority of the Filipino billiard champions were sponsored by our company and regularly practiced their billiards game on our American Brunswick tables to bring glory to the Republic of the Philippines. The international players practice there also, I know that. Mr. Gary Hugen, our human rights have been victimized over and over again by you and your international justice mission franchise in our own country, the beloved Philippines. Mr. Gary Hugen, why do you not victimize people in your own country, the United States of America? Are you scared of the consequences to you and your family, the way you have treated our families? We suggest you visit Las Vegas and preach your evangelistic ideas to the tourists walking down the world-famous Las Vegas Strip. We dare you to write to Mayor Oscar B. Goodman, Mayor of Las Vegas, about the dirt on the streets of Las Vegas with all the strip joint cars and the prostitutes walking in short skirts up and down Las Vegas Strip. The children walk with their parents. Is that not human trafficking as you claim? The American pimps in the streets of Las Vegas tourist area include the strip outside Hard Rock Cafe, openly in front of children. They sell pimp girls of all nationalities, including Asian girls, on their t-shirts, giving out business cards, and even driving billboard trucks on the street. See attached photography. I'm looking at the photography now. It says hot babes directly to you, and then the phone number. Call 24 hours. And the guy here, hot sexy girls. And the phone number is giving out cards about prostitutes. But Gary Haugen's not interested in that. Los Angeles Cafe did not do anything like this type of business. We're famous for good food, drinks, bands, and billiards. And yet you, with IJM, had all our customer guests and female staff arrested, or as you call it, rescued, then herded on a truck like animals while being filmed for prime time television. How can you, Mr. Gary Haugen? You have attacked Filipino citizens illegally on so many occasions since you and your field volunteers was drunk and nearly killed in Los Angeles Cafe by nearly killed the Los Angeles Cafe's foreign general manager in 2006. He had the same name as me and the same nationality. His name was Christer. Just after the case was elevated to a criminal court, you started a malicious campaign against our company and the country, the Philippines, as a revenge. When the criminal case was elevated to the criminal court, you knew it would be bad publicity for your scam organization, IJM. Mr. Haugen, you knew you had to destroy Los Angeles Cafe, and you saw us weak enough to do what you fancy. Millions of taxes have been lost for the Philippine economy for your revenge and vendetta. Why don't you go to Las Vegas and try the same scam there on the famous Vegas Strip? Be sure the owners of Hard Rock Cafe there will welcome you with open arms and drive you straight back to the airport in Mayor Goodman's limousine once you start planting evidence on establishment that do not support your scams. Sorry guys, I haven't read this in 10 years. So some of the words here, it's a little bit mixed up. Why do you and your international justice mission not have franchises in Las Vegas, New Orleans, New York, Miami, Chicago, Baghdad, Kabul, London, Berlin, Amsterdam? Are you scared for your freedom to open your scam operation in these places? Why do you open operations in the Philippines, Cambodia, India, South America, Kenya, and not yet in North America? It appears that you're only spending American taxpayers' donations in developing countries and not in the most powerful country in the world. Maybe you could explain your business plan to all the innocent victims. We believe and have proof that your business operation is simply a money-making scam, pretending to help and rescue foreign victims from human trafficking, using the names such as Colin Powell, Hillary Clinton. As soon as the so-called rescued victims sign documents, you and IJM need to convict innocent people. We have affidavits with written evidence. You just throw them on the street like garbage, so you don't have to spend any more money on your so-called rescued victims. When you and IJM need these victims to get convictions, then your IJM Filipina lady lawyers are so sweet-talking, convincing uneducated people to become criminals by pointing out innocent people with the promise of money after they've signed false affidavits. They perjure themselves, I would say. Mr. Hugen, you and IJM make your money helping convicting people, running simple restaurants and bars like Los Angeles Cafe. That is not combating human trafficking. You're creating it by trafficking complainants. Mr. Hugen and IJM force females who work on their free will as dishwasher, cooks, and waitresses to make them complainants, sign false affidavits that they are human trafficking victim. Is that not what the UN decided is human trafficking? It's their livelihood. How many male minors have you so-called rescued ops? Nobody is interested in, as that would not make any donation. Why do all the rescue victims run away from you and IJM unless you lock them up like animals against their freedom and human rights in cages? Why do you, IJM, pretend to be human rights advocates, not give a reward to the security where none of the 248 female customers you had hauled away with your fabrications, that none was a minor? No, you, Mr. Gary Hugen, cannot accept that, so you brought your own minor. Two who were not minors. One of them you kidnapped from her village office and then made them sign complainants against innocent people. She don't even know for your scam organization's publicity. Mr. Gary Hugen, why should management of Los Angeles Cafe and other hardworking individuals spend the rest of their lives in jail for what you claimed were minors inside our place? Or work having some food and drinks when they were not there? And we're not even interested in having non-spending customers. Mr. Gary Hugen, you and IJM transport and harbor minors for your own gain as human trafficker. You are trafficking them as animals to commit crimes of perjury, to sign affidavits against innocent people that do not even know, that they do not even know. Do people read your Twitter accounts? We do every day, and know that Mr. Gary Hugen is enjoying his fantastic food that he posts daily on Twitter like a spoiled brat, even with photos. Do people, politicians, government workers, volunteers, IJM employees know that you and your family live a life in luxury, including surfing trips to Florida, lake trips to 5-star hotels, and your latest escapade to Guatemala with your daughters via Dallas, where you stopped over from some Tex-Mex food? Why do you need to tell people about what you and your spoiled daughters are eating? Meanwhile, 2 of our employees were jailed for 3 weeks in the Manila city jail for doing their constitutional right to work and support their families, then living with outright criminals, thanks to you, IJM, later to be released for wrongful detention, writ of habeas corpus. One of your victims was a female professional pool player and was managing the pool tables when she was arrested for human trafficking and spent 3 weeks in jail as you and IJM claimed she was a minor. How can operating 9 billiard tables make you end up being charged with human trafficking and face life in prison? Are you proud of yourself? We show your daughter, I'm most impressed what you're doing. Then it's a lot of bragging here on Twitter. I'm not going to read that up. It's about CNN and Guatemala and yeah, all those things. I'll go on here. Sorry, I've cut this because it was a 6 series. I've taken just bits and pieces. One of Los Angeles Cafe's employees was deprived of her dignity and freedom because of false affidavits secured by you and IJM. Meanwhile, you're continuously flying around the world in luxury and staying in 5-star hotels, all paid by the American taxpayers. Do your scammed investor know the 5-star lifestyle you and your family live with their funds? Do they know, Hugen, how much money you spend every year living the life of a scam artist while pretending to help innocent victims everywhere but in the United States of America? Los Angeles cafe's billiard table spotter waitress victim was treated like an animal by your International Justice Mission money-grabbing lawyers and officers. A simple female employee who worked to feed her family, fully documented, waitress, 27 years old, married with 2 children. She was locked up through a power of attorney you had made from the local social workers while feeding her rotten rice until she accepted to be a complainant against her employer as a minor victim. At 27 years old. It was like it's the Swedish minors. We have even older minors in Sweden. That's another story. The so-called luxury tourists that come to Sweden, their children up to 60 years old. Then they get asylum in Sweden. Even though she was married, mother of 2, you forced her to provide the original birth certificate to be released from her detention. Her family had to spend their hard-earned money to travel, not only once, but twice to the province. I think she was from... I can't remember. I saw it in a previous letter. We'll come back to that. To secure said document, depleting their final life savings. We Filipinos are not like Americans, where you can just get a credit card or a loan. Guimaras stod det. Guimaras, we said, an island outside Iloilo. Why was she eventually released? But your scam could not continue. And in desperation, your IJM Philippines made her sign a waiver not to take legal action to them for illegal detention, to give her human rights or freedom. Not one of the government-issued IDs that the victim had accepted by the lawyers of the IJM Philippines to prove her age to be 27, until finally, under the law of the Philippines, she could not be detained any longer. And yet she was forced to sign a waiver by IJM to say she was not held against her will and that she was rescued by IJM, that she was so happy to be held in jail for no reason by IJM. Yeah, I've seen a copy of that affidavit. It's mind-blowing. Your victim still has mental scars and now has suicidal thoughts daily. Tell your daughters this fact when you have your next luxury meal on the way to another luxury destination in the first-class cabin of American Airlines, as you're an AA Advantage executive platinum card holder. Your female victim also feels sorry for you, having to suffer the broken aircon system in your New York taxi. This must have been hard for you to survive, as you posted it on Twitter. How more could your female innocent victim of IJM survive in jail with murderers, with no sanitation or air conditioning, thanks to you and IJM? Sincere congratulations to your daughters who are now doing a special project in their expensive private American school, paid for by donation, as you posted yet again on Twitter, with the funds of American taxpayers to rescue so-called victims in foreign countries. Sadly, your victims' children's parents cannot even afford to pay for their school fees since they've lost their job and have been innocently jailed by you and the IJM Philippines. I would just like to put one thing here. I brought it up in an earlier program. People will say, well, it's the Philippine police, the Philippine justice system. Yes, but it's what IJM has fed them. All cases here was, when they investigated, it was dropped. So it's IJM is feeding the justice system all these fake affidavits. And of course, the justice system, the police has to act on these reports. But all the cases were dismissed. So don't blame the Philippine justice system. They had done nothing wrong. They did everything correct in the end. Let's see what we have more. So try to cut it down as much as possible. Okay, it's articles. Yeah, that's quite funny. There was about another raid they did. They rescued the women, they said. It's actually in their homepage. But it's in the Philippine newspaper. 50 of the rescued women managed to escape through the emergency exit when they were about to be rescued. So you're rescued. You should be happy. Shouldn't you thank your rescuer? No, they escaped through a window. Emergency exit. There was another one here also. They were escaped the back of the bus where they have been loaded in the front door like animals. They escaped in the back. Wait, they were rescued. You should be happy. You don't escape when you've been rescued. Shouldn't you thank the people that rescued you? The perjury affidavits submitted to the Philippine courts and police about Los Angeles Cafe, their customer and employees, should be shown to the world, including your friend Jim Clancy at CNN, to show what a money-making scam IJM has become for the enrichment of your God-fearing, brainwashed employees and lawyers in the Philippines and the rest of the world. The field mission employees of International Justice Mission arranged a raid on the 17th of June 2010 that the IJM lawyers denied in court under oath that they were not present in jail. Attached is the IJM report and photograph of IJM field officers smiling as they proceed to put 248 innocent fellow female customers in jail for playing a game of pool and watching live bands. I've seen the pictures, the IJM officers and the thing in court. IJM said they weren't there, but the only problem is there's 20 pictures with them in IJM uniforms, and they're lying in court. Can you imagine doing that in America? They would throw away the key. These innocent victims, even including wives and foreign nationals who were simply watching the 2010 FIFA Soccer World Cup, then IJM claimed they were rescued so that they were allowed. So why were they all allowed to go home to their families and forced to sign a disclaimer? Why did IJM need to have one of the nation's biggest TV station to make a live video of the raid and then have the photo of Hillary Clinton from the State Department all over national TV claiming that the Philippines will remain at tier 2 for human trafficking and not get $250 million, all to help IJM to get more donation to support their scam lifestyles at the expense of innocent Filipinos? We, the real victims of IJM, have to praise the Lord, though that you're not interested to rescue male customer, as that would have needed 20 trucks to cart them away as well like animals. The evening of the 17th of June 2010, there were over 600 Filipino and 400 foreign male customers and the male employees. Not one male customer was asked any identification or proof of their age by IJM. Why were the male customers and employees allowed to go free? Obviously, IJM is not interested in male customers, as they know they cannot treat them like animals. And nobody cares about male. It sounds better in the media about rescuing females. In fact, it appears IJM does not rescue Philippine males or foreign males, as it appears to IJM only female are victims of human trafficking in the Philippines. Maybe you can explain your company policy for victims of IJM. See, I'm going to cut this down a little, so much here. It says here that the affidavits were already waiting at the police station. They were already issued even before the raid. They had even bought a new printer for the police so they could print out the affidavits before they made the raid. I believe that. So I have so much on this particular NGO. Mr. Gary Hugen. In IJM's press release after the raid on Los Angeles Cafe, you said you and IJM rescued 17 minors that evening. Mr. Gary Hugen, it turned out that none of the 248 customers you rescued from watching FIFA World Cup in football, playing billiards and listening to live music turned out to be a minor. Filipinos have the constitutional right, as you do in America, to socialite, even in the world-famous Hard Rock Cafe. It would have been a violation of a city ordinance to allow minors out 10 p.m. to 4 p.m. in public areas without adult companion. And the one who should be punished there, in that case, should be the parents. For your information, Mr. Gary Hugen, in the Republic of the Philippines, you can drink alcohol legally when you reach the age of 18, while in the United States of America, you have to be 21 years old. Let's see here what we have more. So long, this one. 3 female foreign tourists were watching FIFA World Cup soccer. They will never visit the Philippines again, thanks to you and IJM. Another crime you have done, as this is economic sabotage to our country. 71 of the innocent people you so-called rescued were married to foreigners. Mr. Gary Hugen, one female customer was from Thailand and was initially kidnapped, rescued by IJM operatives as she appeared by her looks to be Filipino. Your IJM operatives released the female Thailand national as they have no right to kidnap a foreign tourist who is in the Philippine Department of Tourism registered establishment. Let's see what we have more. We believe you and IJM want to destroy the Philippines tourism industry and once more make us a colony of the mighty United States of America. Why don't you go back to your country? Yeah, I agree with that. Let's see. It's about Jim Clancy. We've already made a video of that. The Philippine law is very clear. I don't know this one. To be an accredited NGO in the Philippines, your total administrative cost of the total expenses is not allowed to be above 30%. IJM Philippines had salaries alone in 2009 of 23 million pesos, of 68.8 million pesos in grants. On top of that, the total administrative expense exceeded 62.5%. You should lose your NGO accreditation forthwith. And then it's about taxes here, because obviously IJM is not paying taxes, even though they're making tons of money. Let me see. 3 innocent Filipino victims of IJM were forced under pressure to sign affidavits that they worked as guest relation officers at Los Angeles Cafe by your field directors. That's funny, because I know personally, LA Cafe, Los Angeles Cafe don't have any guest relations officer. There was another lie, another perjury by IJM. Los Angeles Cafe never had a guest relation officer employed. Even if that is legal, which it is, that was not the business model. The business model is patterned around the famous American brand called Hard Rock Cafe. Good food, good music, good ambience, and live bands. No employee was issued an ID prior to the following stringent documents, only for pre-application: biodata, NBI clearance, police clearance, barangay clearance, TIN number, social security number, 2 pieces 1x1 picture, copy of birth certificate, drug test, and a map of the resident. But wait a minute, and all these documents said that they were minors. Can you explain that? Upon approval by the HR department, trainee application, mayor's permit, occupational permit, sanitary permit are obtained by the applicant, him, herself, at Manila City Hall before they get the uniform and can start work. Mr. Gary Hugen, you and IJM stated that Los Angeles Cafe had 3 minors working as GRO receptionists in a place that don't even employ GROs. When do a social democrat in Sweden lie? Every time the lips move. When do an IJM agent lie? Every time the lips move. Let's see here. Raid, donation. These 3 so-called rescued victims that you and IJM forced to commit these crimes of perjury under Philippine law are willing to face you eye to eye if you have time from your busy 5-star life. He never got back to that either. I saw that in another letter. This is a total of over 100 pages I've cut together. I'm trying to shorten it down. You have so far refused to have any dialogue, verbal or written contact with us, except when your IJM lawyers threaten us in court and in the Philippine Human Rights Agency, where we file cases against them and IJM Philippines, where you're an officer and a board member. IJM Philippines has poisoned the minds of the Philippine Human Rights Commission and threatened them with legal cases. Therefore, we will bring our cases against you to the international forums. IJM and you as a leader can assist these victims who you claim to have rescued by issuing an American visa. It appears that every former IJM Philippines field director's salary package includes an American visa and lifestyle in the United States. You celebrated when Michael was released from a Kenyan jail where he was wrongly detained. You never celebrated when our innocent managers, including the one you said human trafficked billiard balls, were released from the detention through your malicious fabricated reports and affidavits. Yeah. Mr. Gary Hugen, you as a human rights champion should have stood up and said, God is great, we did a mistake, but the innocent people are now free after 23 days in jail for serving customers, just like the employees in any worldwide Gary Hugen. Mr. Gary Hugen, you never celebrated when the 27-year-old waitress was released and united with her 2 small children. She started in the company as a dishwasher, but was promoted for hard work. Was she trafficking dirty plates, may we ask? Is this, in this case, you're anti-Filipino, as your staff here clearly are. They're just dedicated to serve the Grand Master, Mr. Gary Hugen. IJM Philippines spent nearly 7 million Philippine pesos in 2009 on travel expenses from the grants of 69 million from the United States IJM office. Do your donors know that less than 10% of your grants to the Philippines are declared to help people? The remainder are salaries and administration expenses, like expensive office, business class travel, first class hotel, expensive cars. Why don't IJM operate in the Philippines? In the United States? Let's see, it's about auditing all the convictions. We were taking that earlier. I saw our IJM Philippines have been sued in Cebu for perjury. Yeah, I saw this affidavit also. Hamilcar Monseda, we salute the fantastic man. Hamilcar Monseda, he said he tabled a GRO in Los Angeles cafe, but there is no GROs. I saw his affidavit. It's in court. It's a public document. There's never been a GRO there. Okay, the last now. Hamilcar Monseda is now being sued in the Philippine court for perjury with International Justice Philippine Mission for making false affidavits under oath. See. We have a former American citizen, a government employee, now retired from the American Embassy in the Philippines, and a liaison officer of a law enforcement agency. He worked for the FBI. I know him personally. We were friends for years, but I haven't seen him for over maybe 15 years. In your American Embassy, senior one, who has been with his wife, brother, and other customers in Los Angeles cafe since it opened in 1999. He's willing to face you eye to eye. His credential would speak for themselves, and there you call him a liar. I would like to see Gary Hugen calling a former FBI senior agent a liar. He's willing to tell you, Mr. Gary Hugen, that what we tell is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. He's disgusted what you did to Los Angeles cafe in the fabricated report against innocent people. You can put us in jail. But till you do, Mr. Gary Hugen, bow your head and say sorry, we made a mistake, and apologize our crusade to clear our names. And we will continue our crusade to clear our names every day. And then there's a lot of bad words here, so I won't bring them up. But I think that's about it for this series. This one became a little bit longer than I expected, but there was so much to cut and paste. And I had to go through all the affidavits and all the court documents as well. So I hope it makes some sense. As I said, I wasn't the one writing this one. This was written by I know whom. And he wanted me to include this in this 6-program series. Thank you everybody for watching, and let's be very aware what is going on with these NGOs. And IJM came up a lot here, but there's others. They're not alone out there. It's a very muddy world. Thanks for watching, guys. Ciao.